Hey, 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 Bentley Evans, your man. He's right back with another episode of The Hollywood Blueprint. And today we're going to talk about the decision. The decision that I made from going from actor to writer, from going in front of the camera to behind the scenes. Was it the right decision? I'll let you guys decide. I want to talk a little bit about how I got started in this industry. So I got started in this industry as an actor. I never wanted to be an actor. That was never my dream. However, I thought it would be kind of cool to be able to do so. And so I've told the story of how I broke in many times before, so I won't bore you with that. But I will say I started out as an actor, and I actually started booking television roles. I started booking roles in TV. I booked a role in House Party. I booked a role in Doogie Howser and so many other TV shows that were on the air at the time. But then I made a decision to go behind the scenes. Now, that decision came from the thought of there being so much competition out there. And right now, today, as just a classically trained actor, it's kind of hard to go up against all of these influencers that are making names for themselves, and now these studios want to exploit their popularity. And it's the same thing that I had to deal with back in those days when I got started in the 80s. And except it wasn't influencers, they were rappers. So as an actor, the competition was stiff because now you had to compete against other actors, you had to compete against rappers, you had to compete against stand-up comedians, and so therefore it wasn't easy. And so I knew that I didn't do any of them well. I knew how to act, but I didn't know the real format. I knew how to, pull it off if I needed to, but I only knew that that would get me so far. I realized that for every actor, you pretty much have about 10 writers. So I had to do the math and go, so if you got 100 actors, there's 1,000 writers. Maybe I should be in the 1,000 pool. And it made sense to me. So I started writing. I really didn't know what I was doing. So I started reading scripts. I didn't read a lot of script writing books. I started reading actual scripts. I guess the good thing was that I was acting, so I would always hold on to the scripts that I used while I was acting, and then I would go back and analyze them and see how the writer thought about what he was going to put into those scripts, and I just kind of learned the structure and the beats based upon reading scripts. And I think that once I made that decision to become a writer, there was no turning back. I knew that there was going to be a lot of limitations on me as an actor, because if that's all I did at that time, I would have been swallowed up by, the onslaught of all these new rappers and comedians that were coming into the business. So since I didn't do either one of them, I knew that there had to be some other way. So Martin Lawrence was one of the key people that told me that I had to make a decision on whether I wanted to be a writer for his show or continuing to act. And I knew that it was a very difficult decision to make, and it was an ultimatum, but I think that I ultimately made the right decision because I jumped in that writer's room and learned how to maneuver my way through hundreds of episodes that were produced and years of being on staff. And that prepared me for the Jamie Foxx show, where I did hundreds of episodes, and I participated in writing scripts for feature films like A Thin Line Between Love and Hate and other projects that were kind of floating around back in those days. Some made it to the screen, some never did. But I think that ultimately I made the right decision based upon the climate that was happening at that time. There were very few black people writing television sitcoms at that time. And so jumping into that minority meant that I was a part of the majority. And so what ended up happening was I ended up jumping in and I never looked back. And I realized that as a writer, the next the next logical step would be to become a producer and then a director. And then, of course, you realize, just like Dorothy did in The Wizard of Oz, you had it all the time. I could have easily written roles for myself in the stuff that I was writing. But because I took writing as more of, I guess, more of a priority as to what I was looking to get involved in, I never looked back at acting as something I would take seriously. Maybe one day I will grace the screen again. Maybe or maybe not. But I think I made the right decision by jumping behind the scenes into that writer's room. And now I'm a multi-hyphenate. Writer, producer, director, and I guess I could still say actor. So at the end of the day, I think I made the right decision. What do y'all think?